Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Closing a Gap, a social justice podcast where we share ways to minimize gaps within society and promote solutions that work for all. Today, we're really excited to be interviewing Sabine, Maxine, Lopez from A Tribe Called Queer. They're doing a lot for the BIPOC and LGBTQIA2S plus communities with all of the resources that their organization is providing. We also dive into a little bit about their experience in building up A Tribe Called Queer into becoming a nonprofit. I'm really excited for you all to take a listen and learn more. So here we go. Welcome back, Closing the Gap. I'm Adriana.
Hi, I'm Tanya. Thanks for coming back to our social justice podcast.
And today we're here with Sabine, Maxine Lopez, founder of A Tribe Called Queer. We're very excited to have her here. Really, we wanted to spotlight her organization because of everything that she's doing for her community. So why don't we go ahead and kick it off by explaining what inspired you to start A Tribe Called Queer and what the main purpose of the organization is.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. Well, interestingly, it started off as an Instagram page I created in 2016 of March, I think. And I basically wanted to create an IG page where I could promote what other queer people were doing or other queer-owned small businesses or other queer-owned nonprofit. That was the goal when I first created A Tribe Called Queer. And then slowly it shifted, a couple of years later into a brand where I had, clothing and accessories line, a podcast, and like a whole bunch of other things, events as well. And then now we're in a very exciting transitional phase again, where we're shifting from a brand to a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So that's where we are now.
That's great. Can you explain a little bit about that journey into becoming an organization and what kind of steps you're taking in order to get fully there?
Yeah, we are fiscally sponsored right now. And what that means is that we are under basically like people can make donations to A Tribe Called Queer and have it be a tax deduction, but it goes through a larger nonprofit organization. People do that a lot when you're just starting out because to file, your own 501c3, like they make it difficult for a reason. It can be really costly and confusing, quite frankly. And so I decided having a fiscal sponsor initially would be the best way to like get my foot in there. But eventually, like you have to have your own 501c3 in order to be able to get specific grants, which means you can get funding from other foundations, organizations, or even government funding. And so it was just a really important step that we had to take, and we're excited to be able to do that. But that also means a lot of work. It's really, really difficult. There are days where I'm like, why am I doing this? Because it's so hard. You have to create a board of directors, and that's its whole thing. And I am kind of doing everything myself. I do have a person that helps me with my digital stuff, and I'm hiring some interns. So I'm super excited about that. But for the most part, it all falls under me, and I have to do all the paperwork, and it is quite exhausting.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I know that must be, like you said, some days it seems like a lot and it's very overwhelming, but obviously you have a vision. So what does that vision look like to you? What is the purpose of becoming an organization? Because like you said, you started with a page, so maybe you didn't really know that you'd end up here. But now that you have, it's clear to me that you want to grow the organization and what your work and the impact. So yeah, what can the 501c3 or the fiscal sponsor do for you that you weren't able to do before?
Yeah, I absolutely 110% did not think I'd be here. I helped my partner launch their nonprofit and did a lot of the work for a couple of years, helping them get started. So I never imagined I would be here again. I said I wouldn't be, doing this again, but yeah, here I am. But honestly, I could have stayed a small business and really done really well. Our brand is every year, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and people know who we are, and that's awesome. But for me, what it boiled down to was like, I had to make the decision a couple of months ago. What do I want to do with this? Like, do I want to let it go? Do I want to really invest my time and energy into building this? And if I want to do that, then how do I want to do that? Like, what's the point? You know, why? And so I really had to do a lot of like self-reflection and figure out, well, ultimately, my goal in life has always been to help people in whatever ways that I can. You know, that's just how my mom raised me. You know, we grew up with nothing, like nothing, very, very poor, in poverty. And even still, we would help, you know, our other friends and family who were struggling, because that's just what you do. And so for me, as a Black and brown, you know, non-binary person, I myself am struggling with whether it's my mental health or the world, like just existing in this world, then I know that other people are too. And so for me, I was like, well, I have this platform, I have a way of reaching people and possibly helping them through programming. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to focus on. And whether that's, you know, like the other day I had an LGBTQ asylum info session with Oasis Legal Services, and it was like the reminder that I needed of, oh, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm stressed. This is why, you know, this is the why. And it's because of stuff like that. You know, I'm excited about an upcoming domestic violence group that we're going to launch with Peace Over Violence, like doing stuff like that, beginning our art therapy series, you know, because I am a creative spirit and I believe that art is very healing. And so I wanted to be able to use art to help heal people. And so doing programming like that is really the purpose and what I want to be at the forefront of what we do as a Tribe Called Queer. The clothing and accessories are fun and like really cute. And like, of course, it is a way to make people feel empowered as well. And I don't want to lose that. That's still going to be an aspect of what we do, but it's not going to be at the forefront of what we do.
I love that. Thank you so much for that background of like your history and what inspired you to become who you are today and who you're becoming still. Yeah, that was really
I like how you say still, because it is constantly evolving. I mean, hopefully that's the goal for most people.
Oh yeah. No, we can tell you are.
Thank you.
It's just the next step in the journey. Yeah, of course.
Because you have so many programs going on. I know you touched upon a few that you have going on currently, but what you're doing for the community, it's just like, I can't commend you enough. These are services that a lot of us do really need. And the fact that you're providing that for these communities that don't really necessarily always have those resources, it means a lot.
Thank you. I mean, it's stuff I want to do too. You know, it's like, you know, oh, I've always wanted to do this, or oh, this would be really helpful, you know. And so that's where the inspiration will come from, or people, you know, I ask people like, well, what would you want to, you know, learn about or explore or whatever. And so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, speaking of other topics that we want to explore, we're not personally queer, Adriana and I. So I think for us, it's about learning from you, people like you, the community, and listening, amplifying the messages, because just because we don't identify with your community doesn't mean we can't support, right? So with that said, like, what are ways that we can be an ally and our listeners can as well?
Yeah, that's a hard question, because when I think about that, I have to kind of shift my thought process to think about like, well, what is something that I don't necessarily identify with, in order to think like, well, what could y'all do? You know, because firstly, I don't want to have to be the person to say, well, you should do this, you should do that. You know, that's not my job. And it's also not fair to put it on to people who have to do that labor of saying like, well, you need to do this, right? And secondly, like, I'm not somebody who identifies as disabled, but when I think about, well, what would make me a good ally to disabled folks, I think about, well, I have to educate myself on, you know, what are their experiences like? How do they have to live in this world? What challenges do they face? And in those challenges, okay, well, how could I be of assistance in some way, shape, or form, you know, and whatever that looks like. And, you know, talking to people and asking questions. And, you know, Google is a great resource. There's so much stuff on the internet. There's like lists now, I think, that exist of like how to be an ally, you know, to queer people, how to be an ally to Black people, how to be an ally to, you know, there's so many lists that exist. And I think like, you know, doing the research and educating oneself is really, really important. In terms of specific things, like, you know, it's important to support the people who are on the ground doing the work every single day, like, you know, nonprofits like A Tribe Called Queer, or my partner's nonprofit Project Q, which is an amazing fucking nonprofit that does like great work and supporting these orgs and like becoming a monthly donor, or donating to their fundraisers, or, you know, buying their merch and like supporting them all year long, not just at Pride, because that also has like, what's the word? You know, June is always like everything goes up, and then as soon as it ends, everything goes back down. And it can be very disheartening and almost insulting in a way, because it's like, well, damn, y'all don't care about us the rest of the year, you know? So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my answer.
No, that was the perfect answer. I just kind of want to get some points there for our listeners to really emphasize. Educate yourself, very important point. I mean, I'm asking you because you're willing to be part of this conversation, but yeah, that doesn't mean you should go up to any person that identifies LGBTQ and be like, what can I do for you, right? Like, you shouldn't be just expecting people to educate you. I love that. Educate yourself. Support organizations, completely agree. And yes, no rainbow washing. In the same way, like you said, it's not about just this 1 month, and it can be heightened. It can be like really highlighted this month. That's great. It can really give you a great reminder, but that doesn't mean that, you know, these people stop existing the rest of the month. And that really goes for all the other months as well. Just because we can have these months for different communities doesn't mean that that's the only time you support them. So thank you for that.
And we know who the real ones are. I have a handful of folks who are always constantly, you know, even if it's just reposting all the time, or like, you know, giving, or whatever it looks like, or sharing our event. You notice those people. Those are the real ones who are creating space. If you're in your job and you have a position where you have some power, like, use your power to like uplift those who are marginalized within your company. That's another great way, but yeah, that's enough.
That's plenty to take action. Yes.
To kind of build off of that, what is some of the most impactful ways that you've seen support shown to you and to the LGBTQIA2S plus community?
There's two ways. Okay. The first, money. That's always needed, no matter what, you know, unless it's like, I mean, even if it's a multi-billion-dollar org, like, they still need support, right? Number two is action, you know, volunteer. Time is also a form of currency, and giving your time to help. There's an event and they need like volunteers. Okay, let me go volunteer. It's also very fulfilling and it feels good. You're getting something in return, you know, but volunteering, giving your time, showing your support all year. That's important, no matter what's going on.
I really like that you emphasize time as well, because that can be shown in so many ways, especially now. Right now we are on Zoom. For our listeners, we are not in the same room. This is like, use your technology, right? Use your time. Like you said, sharing events. If you can't attend an event, then watch the live stream, things like that. Like, there are so many things that you can do right from your bedroom if you can't physically be there, because either it's in a different place, or like you said, you may have a disability. There's so many different ways you can interact, and just boosting those on like your Instagram, a tribe called Queer Instagram, engaging with that, because we want that to show up on the algorithm. So if people don't engage with it, it's just gonna, you know, not show up. So that's something really important as well.
Especially flyers.
There you go. Yeah.
People don't like to like those pictures, but we need you to like them so that other people can see them.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it works, but we just gotta, you know, work with what we got.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I know you mentioned also like financially helping. I did want to plug in really quickly for you. Know that you're currently fundraising for 30K. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you plan to do with those funds and how that would help your organization specifically?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. The first thing would be hiring help, because it is a lot to launch a nonprofit, you know, by yourself, essentially, in terms of like the administrative parts. So my goal is, I don't even expect us to raise 30K, but if we could do half, I'd be so happy, because I could hire someone to help with programs, and I could hire somebody to help with development, because a part of development include grant writing, fundraising, all that kind of stuff, to help bring in more funds to be able to keep doing all the programs. So as you mentioned earlier, I do virtual and in-person programming. So that's going to continue to develop, and we'll be able to do a lot more and like pay our facilitators, because that's also very important to me. You know, the majority of my facilitators will be QT BIPOC folks. And so being able to pay them well for facilitating is important to me. And that will also ensure that our programs are accessible to people. Eventually, I want everything to be either free or donation based, but I can't do that unless we have the funding to do that and to be able to support ourselves. And so that's another part of it. I want to relaunch our podcast. So I had a podcast for A Tribe Called Queer where I would sit with another queer person and we basically pick a topic and talk about that topic. But I want to shift that and create a new podcast called Kinfolk. And this podcast is going to be an archival podcast for LGBTQ BIPOC elders stories and with an emphasis on Black trans elders. And so this is important to me because it's important to know our history in order to know where the fuck we're going. And so this is something that I really want to work on. But like I said, I cannot continue to do everything by myself. I need to hire, a producer and an assistant to be able to help conduct the interviews. And I also want to pay the people that we're interviewing because that's also important. Being able to give money to people who are probably going to be triggered telling their story. They have to do emotional labor to tell their story. And also just saying that, hey, I value your time. Thank you. Here you go. It's not a lot, but here's something. That's important to me. But we need money to be able to do that. Oh my God, so many things. What else? It's all listed. It's all listed on the fundraiser. There's so many things that we're working on and I just need to hire people. I also believe in paying people well. Like I want my, the starting wage at A Tribe Called Queer to be $20 an hour to start. And that's just based on the job and the role and the hours and all that kind of stuff. But maybe one day the minimum could be $25 an hour. I don't know, but it's important to pay people well. I also want to pay myself. That's a part of it too. So yeah, those are a couple of reasons why we're fundraising right now.
Please be sure to check out our show notes because we will be including a link there so that you can donate to A Tribe Called Queer to help them meet their goal. I love that you're being transparent about where the funds are going and that it's going to go directly to help the LGBTQIA2S plus community. And just in case, I know some of our listeners may not be aware of what the full extended acronym may stand for. So I think it might be helpful to explain the extra added acronym, if you wouldn't mind sharing, Sabine, what those signify.
For sure. So the LGBTQIA2S plus. So for folks, most people know what LGBTQ stands for, but the I is for intersex, A is for asexual, 2S is for two-spirit. So a lot of the Native American people identify as two-spirit. I guess you could say it's similar to non-binary, kind of in a way. And so, yeah, that's what it stands for.
Thank you for sharing that. We want to be sure that we're being inclusive of everyone, a part of the community. So please, listeners, do your research and please educate yourself and ensure that you're including everyone within the conversation.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this podcast is all about, inclusivity. And just going back to something, I wanted to emphasize that a lot of people look at nonprofits and think they're doing such great work and then it's kind of like the end, right? They don't think about all the work that you have to put into doing that great work, all the behind the scenes, all the logistics. Like you said, they don't make it easy because, of course, corporate America wants to be corporations, not a nonprofit funded. And just funding the people that are part of that. I work for a nonprofit and a huge issue that we have seen is that when we ask for donations, like you said, we want to be transparent about where they go, but a lot of times people want to see it go directly to a project, right? Like they don't want to see people funded. If you see a lot of graphs of huge nonprofits, the majority of the pie graph is this is to our programs. And then the staff is paid 2%. And it's just trying to show people hey, we're a nonprofit. We're not trying to pay ourselves. And it's just so toxic, really. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The more staff you have, the more programs you can have, fund your staff. And the fact that we have this all, like we said, backwards is really detrimental to all these nonprofits that are doing amazing work. So I love that you're being transparent, just telling us where our funds are going.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's people think that because you're in a nonprofit that you're supposed to be struggling and working your ass off and not rewarding yourself or paying yourself well, but no, that's what causes burnout. That's what makes people say, fuck this industry and not want to be a part of it. And that is where it's backwards. And we have to be able to take care of ourselves. We have to have good, vacation and holidays and get paid well. That stuff is important. But yes, I agree. A lot of time the funding isn't really reflected in terms of paying people well, but it should be. And hopefully that will change at some point.
Yeah. I think it does change when we start talking about it, when we have conversations like this, because I don't think a lot of people know that if they're not in the industry, the nonprofit sector. So again, thank you for just sharing that behind the scenes so everyone knows. And with that said, we do kind of want to wrap things up just because, like you said, we need to appreciate your time, the time that you have agreed to be here. So yeah, just anything else you want to plug in, just other organizations, other people, any other work you're doing, go for it.
Well, you can follow us at A Tribe Called Queer on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter, we are ATC Queer. Our website is atribecalledqueer.com. As you said earlier, our fundraiser campaign will be in the show notes, so please donate if you can. Let's see what else. My partner's amazing nonprofit is called Project Q. Check them out. They're doing really great work for queer and trans homeless youth. I mean, I could go on and on about other orgs and businesses to support, so I don't want to start that, but I'll just say, check out Project Q.
Yeah, thank you. And if anything, we can add more in the show notes if we didn't get to them. So everyone look at the show notes. Everything will be there.
Yes, we are currently working on one of the best resource sites in existence for LGBTQ and BIPOC folks. And so once that's live, a lot of people will be able to go to our website and find all kinds of resources. So I'm really excited about that. It's not ready yet, but it's coming. So yeah, so just follow us along on our website. It'll be there soon.
Yeah, I gotta check back. Thank you for that. It sounds amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for joining with us. We learned a lot about different things I didn't even think we talk about, like what goes into a nonprofit. That's such an important thing too, because if you want to see more organizations do good work, this is just one way that we can do that. So thank you again for sharing your story and for just being you, because you're amazing.
Thank you.
Seriously, the work that you're doing is just incredible. I cannot thank you enough for being someone so strong and so generous. Like the fact that you're building this nonprofit from the ground up is just incredible. And really, we need more people like you out in the world. So thank you.
Thank you. I do want to shout out. Can I give a shout out? Melba Martinez is our digital communications manager. They're the first person that I was able to hire because we got one little mini grant, and I'm super excited. So I just want to say, Melba, thank you so much. I'm not completely alone. I do have some help. I love Melba so much, and I just wanted to give them a shout out. I think their Instagram is Frutamala or something like that. But yeah, thank you, Melba.
Thank you. We love them too.
Thank you.
We hope you all enjoyed this episode. Please follow us on whatever streaming platform you use. To learn more, you can follow us on Instagram at closingthegappod or email us at closingthegappod@gmail.com with questions and feedback. Thanks for listening. Until next time.